My personal brand series would not be complete if I didn't talk about brand storytelling. So today is the first of 3 solo episodes that are devoted to different aspects of making sure that you tell your brand story effectively. And we're going to start with how to rethink your brand story to put it to work for you to help you grow faster. I'm Christie Bilbrey. After working in a Senate press office, the White House, and corporate, I started my own business and realized none of those experiences taught me how to market myself. Thankfully, I discovered how brand storytelling and strategy could help me easily connect with others, promote my services, and grow my brand. I created the Business That Story Built podcast to help business leaders strengthen the stories we tell ourselves and the stories we tell others. Ready to take your mindset and messaging to the next level? Let's get started. So to dive in today, let's talk about why this even matters. Does it really matter if you tell your brand story and how you tell your brand story? Because I think a lot of people wonder, don't prospects just want to know whether or not you can do the job? Isn't that really all they're seeking? Do they have to get to know you? Think about it like this. If you want to be treated like a commodity and something that they aren't really attached to, your clients aren't really attached to you, then all they're looking for is competence and price. And they're not really looking at you as a person or you as a brand and why they want to be with you. So if you're fine with being a commodity, then it really doesn't matter. But if you are a brand where it matters and you're looking for loyalty, and maybe you don't have the lowest price on the market, then you do need to pay attention to your brand story as a part of your brand. This is the personal brand series. If you're going to get personal, you need to share your stories. So it does matter. And honestly, to quote my last guest, Vanessa Morcom, there is a sea of sameness out there. So if you don't want to be the same as everybody else who does what you do, or at least in the eyes of your clients and prospects, you may think, oh, there's so many things that are different about me from my competitors. But if your clients aren't in your industry, then they're not going to know the different nuances that may seem really big to you, but to them, they're non-existent. So you have to make this connection. You have to humanize your brand. And the way you do that is with story. So it doesn't really matter if you're a consultant, if you're a CEO, if you're a hairstylist, if you have your own business and it's built on your reputation and your brand, then it matters who you are, what you're like, what you're about, your process, your approach. And you may think, oh, I've communicated this. People get it. Do they? Because a lot of times it's people have so much information coming at them. You have to reinforce this and repeat it over and over. So you need to really think about how you're communicating this and where you're communicating this. And that's what we are going to get into. Okay, so if we know that this matters, if we don't want to be a commodity and we want people to really understand what makes us unique so they're willing to continue working with us, how do we need to think about this? I want you to start thinking about what makes you unique. Well, it's you, right? So what makes you, you in a way that you can explain to others? It's your stories. It's your lived experiences. It's the meaning that you took from your experiences and how that influenced you to do things, to speak, to behave, to pursue whatever it is that you do. So I want you to think about that maybe a little differently than you have in the past, because people want someone who hears them, right? If you're going to a doctor, then it's wonderful if they went to a really top school, that's great. But if you feel like you're sitting across from them and you're trying to explain your concerns, your fears, your symptoms, and they're not really paying attention, it doesn't really matter where they went to school. You want someone who connects with you. So your story should really communicate how you connect with others. We'll get into that more. A lot of people think that their story is really just a regurgitation of their resume. and it isn't. Because if you think about a biography, do you read a biography to learn what someone accomplished? Probably not. Chances are the reason you bought the biography was because you know about something amazing or unusual that they did, and you want to learn how are they able to do that? What is their story? Who influenced them? Have they always been perfect? Did they ever have struggles? That's what people naturally want to learn. So if you're trying to develop thought leadership, a personal brand, you can't just have this super shiny exterior. That's great to communicate successes and results and accomplishments, but it can't be the only thing, or you don't seem like you're human and someone that people can relate to. So I want you to start thinking about who influenced you. What did that influence you to do that maybe looks differently? How do you speak? What do you do? How do you approach your business? What's your philosophy? What's your mission? How does that really connect to your heart? Those are the things that set you apart from others. And those are things that can be universal, those types of universal emotions that can really connect with your audience. I have this example that I use about an astronaut who is starting a business and they're trying to connect with stay-at-home moms. And you might think, wow, that's such a different experience. How could they possibly relate? Well, if you think about it, the universal emotions would be isolation, loneliness, and they're going to get it. Even though the way that played out in their lives is very, very different, they're going to understand those emotions. And if that is the connection point, then the person who is the prospect is going to feel heard. They're going to feel like that person is going to understand me. I want to check out that person. So that's one way to think about it. It also is going to make you memorable. So the way that our memory works, we have to connect to something emotionally, and usually it's like playing a movie in our heads. So if it's not something that we experience directly, you want to convey, and we'll get more into this in a later episode with the specifics, but you want to share it as though it's happening now. Share a story. And when you share your story, it should be a few really poignant moments in your life where there were shifts and changes, because those are what influenced you. So you want to dive into that moment, those moments very specifically, as though they're happening now, and kind of describe how you felt, what you saw, where you were, how it went down, because that is really going to capture someone's attention. And if they can picture it, it's going to leave a much deeper imprint in their mind. And then when you use that emotional language, when you can connect with their heart and connect with painting a picture, that visual, it's really going to cement, oh, right, that's the person who did this. They had this really interesting story where they went through this in order to get that. So it helps people remember you, and not just you, the consultant, you, the fractional, you, the CEO. It's going to help people remember you based on your approach to something, what happened to you. And also, this is where you really gain trust with your audience. If you think about the people who know you the best, they don't just know your resume. They really know you. And when you say the people who you know the best, it's, you know how things really went down for that person, right? Like, you know the behind the scenes, you know the inside scoop, you know where they struggled, you know what they've had to overcome, and you celebrate with them when they accomplish something because you know how hard they're working, you know what they're up against, you know where their heart is and the connection that they have to something. So if you want your prospects, your audience, whoever that may be, it may be potential collaborators, it may be the press, it may be prospects, it may be others, it may be employees. You want to build trust. That is really the currency of relationship. So in order for that to happen, you have to be vulnerable. You have to let them in to something that was difficult for you, that you had to overcome. And that is where we start to build trust. You invite them into something by sharing something about you, and then they feel more comfortable coming to you. Oh yeah, it's a natural human response. Now, you want it to make sure that it ties with your brand and your mission, not just kind of random stuff. You really want to make sure what we're talking about here is to build your personal brand. So it kind of all comes back to your brand. But this is where you show up authentically, and you're not just showing the shiny exterior, you're showing them the real person behind it. And it also helps people cheer for you. So that way, when you do have an accomplishment, people don't just roll their eyes and think you're bragging. They know this has been a really big thing, and they're really excited with you to cheer you on and share with others about it. And another piece that is really important when it comes to the way that you think about your story is pretty much every brand or every industry is saturated at this point. There are thousands of people who sell what you sell, whether that's a product or your service. So the only thing that truly differentiates you, again, is your story and why. What is your approach? What is your philosophy? What is your mission? Why are you doing what you do? Why should other people care about you? Why should they connect with you? Why should they follow you? Because this is what makes a thought leader a thought leader. They're not just spewing out facts, they're sharing their experience. And maybe it was what happened to somebody else, and they saw somebody else really, take a dive, but they learned from that, and that impacted them so that they could do things differently and they could help other people to do things differently. So whether it's something that happened to you directly or just that had an impact on you, those are great to share if those affected your brand and what matters to the people who you are communicating with. And then the last thing that I'm going to share today is that great brand stories inspire action. So it doesn't mean you need to have the most impressive story in the world or something really unusual that happened to you in order to, captivate people's attention and inspire them to do something. It just needs to be told strategically. So when it's told the right way, it inspires action. And we're going to go over that more in another episode, but I want you to start thinking about, before you even share the story, where are you trying to end up? What is the whole point of the story? You need to know where you're going in order to motivate people. If your goal is to inspire them to do one thing, well, what would inspire them to do that? It's typically tapping into an emotion of something that's really important to them that either they're trying to avoid or that they desire and that they're seeking. And so when you tap into what that is, then you think about, how can I relate to that? How have I experienced that? When you're able to show them how you did that in a way that resonates with them, they're going to start to see themselves in your position and think, she felt the same way I did. If she was able to do this, I'm going to pay attention to her because that means that I might be able to do that too. And it's going to help them take that next step in moving forward. So I hope that those 5 pieces help you start to think about your brand and the way that you share your brand stories a little bit differently in terms of what matters most, and maybe pieces that you thought mattered a lot that actually don't. So I will look forward to seeing you next time, and we're going to get into some of the essentials of the rules of brand storytelling. Thanks so much. Until next time, this is The Business That's Story Built. How are you growing your brand? Are you targeting the right people, developing the right relationships, and consistently getting the visibility and credibility that you need to grow your business? Whether you need a plan that's small or large in scale, our PR firm and consulting services can design and implement what your business needs to grow. To schedule a free call and learn how we can partner with you, email Christie@ChristieBilbrey.com. That's CHRISTIE@CHRISTIEBILBREY.com.